I've been using this Rove dash cam in my 2016 F-150 and also in my other vehicles for a while, and it's been a decent camera, but it's just your typical camera that's mounted with a suction cup, uses a USB to run all the way down the A-pillar, and then I have to have it plugged in down here or wherever. Although it does have decent performance, it just kind of is clunky and it doesn't look really good. It definitely looks like an aftermarket bolt-on. And the biggest issue I have with a lot of these dash cams is the fact that they are mounted with suction cups. And then what happens is you have a hot day, the suction comes loose, it falls, and even though you might have had some nice wire routing, it's not sticking out like mine currently is, it falls, it pulls that wire routing out, and then you go to put it back up. Now the wires is pulled back out, you have to reroute it. It's just annoying. Now I've been looking for a while for alternatives, and then this company reached out to me. And they're out of China. They're called MANGOAL. What MANGOAL has done is they've taken all of the problems that I have encountered with dash cams, and they have worked out all the solutions into one package, and we're gonna get into those right now. So first off, it comes in some decent packaging, and these kits are not universal. They are per vehicle. I'm sure there's a lot of reused components, but it is not just a universal like your typical dash cam is. These are designed to be seamless with our OEM setup, so you're going to want to make sure that you get one that is compatible with your vehicle. One thing that's cool about this system is it comes with an optional rear view camera. It does have a GPS, and I'll go a little bit more into that here soon. And then right here is the actual camera itself. And so there's the camera, there's the power buttons and the picture buttons, and then there's a spot right up in here where the wires are being tucked away. So setting the camera aside for a moment, and then looking at our wiring, this is the solution for the wiring and the power that I really like. And so this is a T-harness, and what it does is you unplug the power going into the back of your mirror, you plug this into the connector that would have been going into your mirror, and now we've been able to successfully T-tap off a power cable that we can use to power our camera, so we don't have to do any wiring all the way down into the dash and stuff like that. So that's awesome. To solve the adhesion problem, they actually use double-sided tape. And an awesome thing about double-sided tape is that you can now mount the camera in places where a suction cup wouldn't be possible. For example, if you notice, currently I have to have my camera off to the right because this is textured and it doesn't get a good suction there. So either I have to have it off to the side here or lower here and it would be in my view. So because we're going to an adhesive, we can just mount this somewhere real seamless, which is actually designed to go right next to the mirror. So currently we've got our rearview mirror right here, and you'll see that we can take our mounting plate and put it just like that, which will effectively have our camera right here, which is just behind the mirror and out of the way, and looks OEM really. And I just don't want to really look at the sticker, so I'm going to pull it off, but I'm sure they wouldn't want you to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and snap in the base. And something that is nice is that it does come with a backup. So if you do sell your truck, you can pull this off and use this to mount it in your new vehicle. Ford uses pretty much the same mirror plugs for a lot of their vehicles. And so if you keep with another Ford or even some other vehicles, you'll be able to reuse this camera. So I'm just gonna put it right up under here. I'm gonna mount it just like that. Now you might be thinking, man, you should have wiped this glass down. Luckily, I just had this glass replaced like a couple days ago, so this is perfectly clean. But if you have used glass, which you probably do, just go ahead and use an alcohol wipe or some glass cleaner and let it dry. Now, in my case, if you look, there's actually no connector going into my mirror. That's because even though I have an XLT, it is like the most base model, similar to an XL. So I actually don't even have a powered mirror, which makes this a little bit more difficult, but most people probably do have a powered mirror. In which case, what you would do is you would unplug the cable going in, and you would plug it into this T connector, and then on this side, you would plug it into where it was going, and now you've got this little T that you can plug in. But instead, I'm gonna have to come up with my own connections. Now, next we have the GPS. So in the instructions, they state that you want to have the GPS somewhere down here on the dash, which would mean that we would have to run this cable all the way down to A-pillar or something like that, which makes sense because they want an unobstructed view. And because the adhesive is on the back side, if we were to mount it right here, it wouldn't be facing the right way. Now, I didn't want to do that, so I came up with my own solution. And this is just a little cradle that I 3D printed. And pretty much what happens is you just set this in there. You don't even need to peel the adhesive off. And then it has double-sided tape. I'll peel this off, and then I can just stick it right up here, but I'm probably gonna put it on the far side where I won't see it, something like that. Or I could put it right up here on top. Doesn't really matter. So that's my solution. If you want this, I'll have a link in the description where you can get this cradle. So to connect the GPS, all you gotta do is plug it into the little blue connector. And the GPS is optional. I don't think you need it, but it will tell you, I think, your speed and stuff like that. And then next we have the rear camera. And notice how long this is. We're not gonna need nearly that much wire to get it to the back. So just take all the wiring out, and we're gonna start routing it up along the headliner, and then all the way back over the headliner to the back, and then all the way back to the rear window. Now, something to keep in mind, if you have overhead roof airbags, you're gonna wanna make sure not to tuck this wire in front of the airbags. You're gonna wanna make sure you get up underneath the headliner and run the wires behind the airbags. If you have curtain airbags in the roof like this, you don't wanna run your cable right here or anywhere up in this range. Instead, if you pull back a little further, you can see that black wiring harness. It kind of blends in with just the darkness, but where that yellow glue line is, you want to tuck it all the way up, back, and behind that. That way, if the curtain airbag ever blows, it's not obstructed and it can do its job. So because I have the Super Cab, I don't have a B-pillar. Instead, I just have this striker that's mounted to the ceiling. So I popped the clip down so I could run the wire all the way back here. And then I ran it around on the underside and behind where this curtain airbag goes down the pillar, and you can see where I ran it back behind the headliner and hanging down there. And then we have all this excess wire because it's just a truck. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bundle it up, and I'm going to run it behind the seatbelt mounting bracket, and I'm just gonna have it in here bundled up. Okay, so now we're at my back window, and it may look a little weird because I got my camper shell back there, but here is our rear view camera, and we're gonna wanna pull the little screen protector off of that. And then notice the text which way is up, and then on this side there's an arrow. That's the side that goes up. So you're gonna wanna mount this wherever is centered. I have a solid back window, but some people have a slider. Now, if memory serves me, on F-150s, they have the smaller little square window here, so there should be enough room to mount it up above if you have the slider. Just whatever you do, don't mount it somewhere that's gonna be interfered with the slider, so maybe slide it in and out and make sure that's not going to obstruct its view or going to hit it or anything like that. So I determined that this is pretty much centered, and then I'm going to peel this off, and I want to pull this arrow sticker off. And same deal, you want to clean this. I already cleaned it with some alcohol. And then this little drum right here, you can just turn and align to where it needs to be looking. And in the app, when we're all done, you can install it and it will show you the live feed, so you can adjust it based on what it is actually seeing. So now I'm gonna plug it in like that, and then tuck our cables up. And I wanna leave a little bit of slack up in this area. I don't wanna pull it super tight back to where I have my bundle of extra wires, because that way if I ever need to drop this, I have some extra wire to play with. And just like that, we are good to go. So because I don't have a powered mirror, we're gonna have to manually hook this up, but it's not a big deal. So most cases, unless you have an XL or a real base model XLT, you are gonna have a powered mirror. You don't have to do with any of this that I'm about to do next. And so right here, if you pop down our overhead console, it's just held in with 4 clips. Like that, you can see those 4 there's 2 white clips and then these 2 black clips. So you can see that I actually already have tapped into this overhead console connector, and that was when I was going to install the sun visors up here. So I already did the groundwork for this. We just need to tie into this. So you can see right here that there's these 2 wires. The one all the way to the left is a negative, and the one all the way to the right is a positive. And I have these T-taps, which isn't the cleanest way to do this, but it definitely is the fastest. Now when we look at our T connector, you'll see that there are 3 wires going to power the camera. You've got a yellow, red, and black. But then when you follow it up a little bit, all you have is a red and black. And that is because Right in here is an inline fuse, which is great. I think it's good if we can retain that little fuse. But 2 wires are going into the fuse, and then only 1 is coming out, which tells me we only need 2 wires. The yellow wire is not necessary. And so we are going to just cut the wiring right here, add a couple extension wires, and then put them on T-taps so we can just plug into our overhead console power. And now we have something kind of like this. So we've got our connector in there. We still have our fuse. And then I added a couple little extended wires and stripped them down so we can splice them in right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the existing T-taps, which, like I said, you won't have these, I'm sure. But you could put these on, put some T-taps onto those. And now I have it all plugged in here, and you can see there's 2 wires going into it. 1 is for my sun visors. You'll only have 1 wire going in, and that is going up through here and down right here, and there's our connection. And you can hear it powering on, and it keeps dinging. I think it's because either the SD card is not in or because I have not set it up with the app yet. We will find that out. But so now I've got these wires here, and then I also ran the GPS wire up through here because we had so much excess wire since we're relocating it to the windshield. And then so the GPS wire is coming from the camera up into here where I'm going to bundle all the wires, and then back down to my little relocator. And so I'm going to place that right now, probably something like over here. I'll figure that out here in a moment. And then what I'm going to do is take some of this fabric wrap, and I'm just going to wrap it around all the wires so I only have 1 big bundle instead of all these random wires, which will make it look a lot more OEM. And then since I already had this down, it'll be a good time just to bundle all this up and tuck it away somewhere it's going to be out of the way, all this extra GPS wiring. So because I did need to hardwire this to my overhead console for like real base model trucks, the power from this is based on ignition and or power saving, which means that this, in an F-150, the way it's wired is that the power for these lights works for another 10 to 15 minutes, which means this is going to continue recording for 10 to 15 minutes after I turn the car off, which I don't have a problem with because it has a really low power draw, and that's kind of nice to be able to record for a little bit after I get out of the vehicle. However, I don't believe that would be the case if you use the T-harness. And so this is what I used to be dealing with, just real unsightly. Wire management was a problem. And now this is what I have. So we have a real seamless camera mounted right there up underneath. I have my GPS box mounted right up there. And then I took that wire wrap and wrapped it around so it looks a lot better. And the last thing I'll mention about the install is that they did come with this little UV filter lens that you just peel this film off. It comes with these little adhesive stickers, and pretty much this can just stick right over the lens and help with glare if you have glare issues off of your windshield. So here we are in the app, and if I stick my fingers right in front, you'll see it's pretty responsive. I would say there's just a maybe 1 to 2 second lag, if that. Probably not even that much, about a second lag, so that's really good. One thing that I've noticed is that it does not play well with Apple CarPlay. So in my car, I have a wireless dongle that hooks up for Apple CarPlay. It does not play well. So in order to connect to this app, which you really shouldn't need to do unless you're needing to pull videos or change the settings, you'll have to disconnect from Apple CarPlay. So not a big deal. It would be nice if they had an Apple CarPlay app so you could just access it from your head unit. But anyway, so if we come over here to the left, we can switch cameras. And so there's the rear view looking into my truck bed, and then we'll switch it back. And then it shows like altitude, stuff like that from our GPS. It's got a speedometer. You can see the GPS strength. And then it shows where it is currently, so that's cool. And then if we go to settings, we want to turn our speaker volume all the way down so it's not making the startup noise and recording message every single time. We can change the resolution. I'm going to leave it in 4K. And then it's already on max. Here it shows the loop recording options. So once the SD card is full, it will delete the oldest minute one at a time to make room for the new minute. So that's ideal. The other thing to note is that it does come with I think it was 128 gigabyte SD card, even with it overwriting. If you need to go back, you should be able to go back quite a ways to get that clip. And to install this app, it was pretty straightforward. Like I said, you really need to disconnect from wireless Apple CarPlay if you have it hooked up. And I'm assuming that's the same thing for Android Auto. Then you have to go in and find, it has a Wi-Fi that is produced by the unit. And there'll be a password. The password is 123456778, and then it connects, and then you are good to go. And the UI is not terrible, but like I said, you're not going to be using this very often anyway. So it's all going to be recording even if your app is not hooked up. Now down here we can go and click on the camera files, and it shows all the recordings so far. And then we could just tap one of those and download it to our camera roll. And then I can go to my camera roll and find it and export it to my computer or whatever.